All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Breakthrough Investor in Commercial Real Estate. My guest today is Yusuf Lee. Yusuf, I'm glad that you're on the show today. Welcome.
Hey, thank you very much, Ernest. I am very excited to be here, and thank you for inviting me. I'm pumped up. Let's go.
Let's do this. I love that attitude. Yeah, I know we've been, putting this on the calendar for some time. I know that we're both very busy individuals, and again, for us to connect and actually get this on the books today and go to this podcast is really an honor. One of the reasons why I had actually brought Yusuf Lee onto our show is because he's got quite a unique background. There's a lot of individuals out there that jump straight into multifamily investing from their current occupation, if you will. But Yusuf is one of those individuals, very, very astute, if you will. And, he's a practicing attorney based out of New York City. And he's also an apartment investor, syndicator, if you will, as well as a business owner, and just a very, entrepreneurial mindseted individual. So with that said, Yusuf, if you can help fill in any gaps, that I've missed, would love for you to kind of tell your story, if you will, a little bit about how you got started and what are you doing today?
Thank you. That was a very good introduction. I think you did all the all the jobs for me. But to fill a little bit of gaps, I'm South Korean immigrant. I'm a father of two girls, 8 and 10 years old. I came to the U.S. when I was like a month shy of 18 years old. So this was like a huge cultural excitement, at the same time challenges, lifestyles, and meeting new people and languages and all that. So I will sum up my life thereafter as just trying to prove myself in the new country, like always trying to be better, always trying to show who I am. And so I did a lot of part-time jobs throughout my colleges, coffee shop, jewelry sales, bar, fish market, restaurant, just trying to survive in that kind of mode, and achieve some goals, but made many mistakes, paid price for it, learned and moved on. So just like life. And long story short, fast forward, I became an attorney licensed in 3 states: New York, New Jersey, and Florida. I made it while I was working full time and going to school at night. And yeah, and I was thinking about, okay, next step. What's the next step to prove myself? Okay, being a partner, going to corporate ladder, and being a senior partner, and making more money. But at one point, I realized, okay, by nature of my job is to trade my time for money. So the more money I want to make, the more time I'm going to have to spend. And that's going against the notion of lifestyle that I was pursuing, right? And just going for a success, I was thinking something was missing. And I started just reflecting myself, doing a lot of research. And I came to a conclusion that, oh, I need to create a passive income so that I could take back the control of my time, right? So I was doing some self-education as to what kind of investment vehicle that I should, establish to get passive incomes. I did a little bit of REITs, mutual funds, and eventually I landed on real estate, more so multifamily, because of all the benefits that multifamily provides. It's no-brainer not to take. Everything was making so much sense there. So yeah, that I became a multifamily investor. So during the daytime, I'm still W-2, as you said, and night and weekends, I work as a multifamily investor.
Wow, that's incredible. You're definitely a high achiever, of course, being licensed in 3 states, also trying to look at what else could fulfill you in terms of, being able to bring in, I guess, either more responsibility or just looking outside of what other things you can contribute in. One question I wanted to ask you, if I could take a step back, is were you already involved in some type of real estate before you got into commercial real estate investing?
Actually not. I'm not coming from a, even if like it's flipping or duplex house hacking background, no real estate, zero experience, just jumped straight right into multifamily.
Wow. Okay. So now that you're into multifamily, I guess if you could just step me through, one, what actually drew you into real estate investing again? What was the draw to get, why commercial real estate?
Okay. So first of all, real estate is was the game that I chose because there are many benefits that I could think about when you think about real estate. You know, the demographics are actually demanding the multifamily, the what you would call uh human. Okay, first of all, basic human needs: food, clothing, and apartments. A home, but I call it apartment because I'm multifamily investor. Demand is there always. And demographic, I was going to talk about. The baby boomers are downsizing. They're moving from big housings after their kids are living home. You know, they want to downsize their house. Millennials are not buying homes. They want more amenities and convenience and cash flow. There's monthly and quarterly check. It's like dividend and hedging against inflation. Inflation, national inflation rate is 2 to 3% each year versus bank savings interest is what, 1%. So by saving your money, you're gonna lose the value through the inflation. But national rent growth is 3-4%, and I'm sure this year it's gonna skyrocket too because it's been consistently going up. And so yeah, all these benefits are what pushed me towards real estate, and even so multifamily, because the multifamily commercial side is a little different from the residential side. If it's over 5 units, you can actually control the valuation of the property. So that actually was very attractive to me.
That's very good. Yes, absolutely correct. There is once you start getting into multifamily above 5 units or more, it does change things a little bit just in terms of your tax write-offs and business benefits that you can write off as well. One thing that I wanted to ask you is, with you now in the syndication arena, what is your current project that you've actually closed recently? I know that you had a recent close here. Would love for you to talk a little bit about that if you could.
Sure. So recently, so far I'm part of the 5 deals as a general partners. First one was 43-unit apartment in Kansas, in joint venture. And second one was 68-unit syndication in Wichita, Kansas. And the third one, 64-unit Missouri. And the fourth one was 36-unit in Ohio. And the last one, which was closed in, I believe, June, was 72-unit in Missouri.
Wow, and you closed on these subsequently, one right after the other.
Right. Within a couple of months. Yes, yes. One after the other.
So tell us so for the first one that you did, how soon thereafter when you started, your commercial real estate investing, did it take you to close that first deal?
Okay. Let's say, I will say after I took the serious step into this commercial real estate game, it took about 10 months to do this first deal, a 43-unit. But after that, the second deal happened in 3 months, and then a month after the other. It was like each month we closed the other three.
Wow, that just goes with some of the thought process. Talking to other, experienced investors, is that the longest time is basically landing that first deal. After you land that first deal, it becomes, for some reason, the law of attraction just condenses the timeline to find that next property and then the following property. And this actually fits that mold so perfectly well. So when you were doing this and you landed your first and second property, were you, how was your schedule? I know as an attorney, you're already working a lot of hours. How did you manage, working your real estate business plus doing your attorney job?
So first thing I did was trying to have really strict planning and time management. And also I had to shrink my sleep hours because I had to squeeze somewhere. and I was already spending some time, well, less than ideal time with my kids, so I couldn't shrink that hours, right? So the only time I could squeeze out was my sleep hours. So basically, I love planning, first of all, like short-term and long-term goal settings and visions. And I love to write down all this, prioritize them, and then transcribe them into like to-do list, vision board, time blocking, daily, weekly, monthly, all this. So strictly, I am good at that. And then the constant checking, reflecting of those to-do lists. And then, like I said, I shrink my sleep hours, maybe 5 to 6 hours a day, so that I could utilize additional 2, 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I got to crash once probably during the weekends, like 30 minutes power nap type thing.
Yeah, the reason why, and thank you for explaining that. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of our audience members, right, are still W-2 employees, and whether they want to transition out of their current job into real estate or they want to be able to maybe hold on to both. I just want to give people a perspective that it is doable, even for somebody that works long hours like an attorney. I mean, that's the perfect example, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Right. But don't get me wrong. I think you can't do this forever
Yeah.
if you want to scale up even further, because even myself, I'm noticing that, the real estate side of business is requiring more hours to be put.
Mhm.
So that kind of pushes me to be even more um, strict into time management. So far, it's helping because it helps me to reflect myself and trying to find where I'm wasting. Even now, there are some times that I'm wasting without doing productive works. So that kind of pushes me to find those spots and I fill in what works. But at one point, I'm probably going to be, you know, burn out and trying to just be slacky, right? So that's part of my plan, to find that fine tuning point and healthy boundary in between these two worlds. And at one point, I think you gotta do something,
Yeah.
either shrink your W-2 side of the job or stay where you are with real estate side and kind of be satisfied with your portfolio. So that's where I am now.
Okay. No, that's a very good point. There is a point in time where you do have to really realize, because you don't want to be pulled in both directions, because you can only give so much of yourself. So I think at least at this point, you'll be able to generate more choices or opportunities for you and your family here in the next couple of years or few years, if you will.
Yes, so
Yeah.
far great.
That's good. That's really good. So now that you've been in the commercial real estate side for some time now too as well, what is one thing that you wish you would have known, as an attorney with your background coming into commercial real estate?
Um, as an attorney, I think I wish I could know more about the finance side and debt structure,
Mhm.
and so that I could be more creative. I'm learning now a lot about creative financing, different loan and lending structures and all that. But that's one thing I think I wish I could have more knowledge on.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's hard to understand certain things, but I'm a quick learner, so I learn, and I'm learned tone now. But initially, that was something that I wish that I would have known.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And you said you're part of an investment group as well, right? So I'm pretty sure you guys bounce ideas or I guess best practices with each other too, as
Oh
well.
yeah, definitely. I have my own mentors, my accountability team members, and colleagues. So anytime when I do underwriting, when we look at the deals, structures, and all that, we all talk about it together and bounce off ideas just to get the best result.
That's good. Now, the states that you mentioned, I'm pretty sure you guys did your due diligence on these states as to why you're investing in them. But could you give us a brief kind of overview of what kind of strategy have you used? I mean, you've closed on quite a bit here, over the last several months. What strategy are you using to, I guess, look at these properties? Are you looking at value add? Are you looking at, long-term play, or just taking the appreciation the way that they are and just kind of writing it out at this point? What kind of strategy are you guys using?
To to get a little more in depth, when it comes to strategy, I think the strategy we use to do more deals is to be heavily relying on the team members.
Mhm.
I believe that a great team should have a couple of partners whose skill set complements each other. You don't want two Ernest in your team. You don't want two Josephs in your team. But at the same time, you don't want Ernest to try to do Joseph's job. You don't want Joseph to try to do Ernest's job, because just because you can do both, I don't think it's a good idea to try to do everything, right? So if Ernest, you're good at finding the deals, I'm gonna make sure you don't worry about capital raising. You don't worry about asset management. I'll make sure and I will support you so that you could just focus on finding the deal.
Mhm.
If I'm good at capital raising, Ernest, as a team member, you will support me in a way that I don't have to worry about deal flow, right? And in that way, which doesn't mean that you can't raise capital, which doesn't mean that I can't find a deal. But by doing so, by focusing on what you're best at, you're giving that comfort to your team members, so that as an entire team, in totality of circumstances, you actually maximize the efficiency. And that way, that's our strategy. You do what you're good at. Don't worry about this this side, because I got your back,
Yeah.
right? And then with that, we find a deal, we pass it along to the next person for underwriting, pass it along to other team members for strategize about capital raising, and then closing it and asset management. So this is organically happening, and I think the current team members are great at that, and it's that level. And obviously, I'm one of the least experienced who just came to the game, but I'm learning this working side by side, and it's also helping me tremendously to grow inwardly and outwardly.
Yeah. That's actually very good. So it looks like you've already put some pretty good processes and procedures in place. Everybody seems to have their particular skill sets within your group. So not one person is overlapping, although you can overlap with your different roles, but people have more specific duties, if you will, within your team, which is great because, some people have a tendency to not have those defined, roles, if you will, with some groups. The other thing I was going to ask you too, as well, is what has been, I guess, an influential moment for you? Has it been your mentors? Has it been somebody during your upbringing that actually kind of made you strive to how you are today? Could
Mhm.
you explain that a little bit?
Totally. If I narrow it down to a multifamily business and sector, the key, I guess, the key resource that helped me along the way the most was uh, being in a mentorship program and mastermind group.
Mm.
And that allowed me to surround myself with high performers, like-minded investors, and just being next to them. Like I said, in a team, I learned side by side just by watching them doing things and running things, putting the strategy into the play. It's a whole lot of education, right?
Mhm.
I'm not just talking about, when it comes to education, I'm not just talking about the contents that you could learn anywhere.
Mhm.
This is like real education.
Yeah.
Like you learn by doing it. And you are surrounded with these, people who are closing the deals left and right and managing the deals left and right. So that atmosphere and the energy was the best thing I could get from this mentorship program.
That's great. You said earlier that you're probably the least experienced in your group, which is great because, being the least experienced, you learn a lot from all these other individuals, which kind of decreases that learning gap, right, if you will. So
Definitely.
that's you actually um, are doing pretty good considering that your group are a lot more experienced and they're able to take you on. But I think I could see the value that you're bringing in here as well, as because your background, you're quick to learn. You're a can-do person. Like you said, this isn't theory that you're trying to learn. These are actionable items that you're probably trying to go out and either try to vet the deal, do some initial underwriting, just to kind of prove your worth to the team, and then eventually gain their trust. So
Oh
I think
yeah.
I had to learn that too a little bit. I had to play dual roles to really fine tune what area I was actually really good at. So
I can tell. Yeah, you're a smart guy. You're doing this. You have a job. You have podcasts, doing multifamily investing. You have many different hats, and you're doing it nicely. So,
oh,
yeah, good for you. Good for you.
appreciate that, Yusuf, and likewise. I think we're kind of in that same mindset or train of thought. So you're always trying to better yourself and how you can provide value to other people as well. And I think commercial real estate is just one of those you know I guess those endeavors where you're seeing the value that you provide. I always look at it as I work my W-2 job as a consultant. Yes, I do see the value, but it's project related. Here, you're impacting a person's life. You're impacting a family's life. You're putting a roof over their head. So, you could see the direct result almost immediately when you acquire these properties. And so to me, that's a kind of a self-fulfilling kind of thing as well.
Yeah, totally. I
Yeah,
agree.
that's great. So what projects are you currently working on now? I mean, considering what you've done already in the past, what's keeping you busy?
So we have two more deals under contract. 130 unit in Oklahoma and 151 unit in Ohio. So we have another round of capital raising,
Mhm.
deal presentation. So that's what I'm preparing now. I just literally got the tear sheet today for 151 unit, and for the next 2 weeks, that's where I'm going to be working for.
Wow, that's great. Is this a class B, class C type of asset or?
So the 130 unit is actually it's actually two different properties.
Hmm.
I believe that was 2024 and 116, if not 34 and 106 units. Well,
Mhm.
okay, so 130, 20, 24, yeah, 106 and 24. I believe that was the demand. But we were putting it together. It's and creating one syndication to buy both. I believe one of my boots on the ground partner actually was looking at this 100+ unit properties and happened to ask some guy next door working on a garden or something, and then start chatting, and he happened to be the owner of that 20 something units. And so my partner asked, like, are, have you ever thought about selling the property, because we're buying this property next to yours? And he actually wanted to sell it, so we were able to put them together as a package deal. So that was very interesting, seller direct acquisition.
Wow, that's good. Which brings up a point I wanted to ask you. Are you looking more, do you and your team look more for offline opportunities versus, direct to a broker, or are you doing a little bit of both?
I think we do a little bit of both, but we're more geared towards direct to seller nowadays, doing the direct to seller campaigns, through a co-star and reports, refine them and skip tracing. But also our partner can actually go, and he's like the type of guy who knock on the door and have tried to establish the in-person relationship with the seller, and he's great at it. So that's one tactic that we use.
That's very good. Well, you found somebody with a great skill set in that sense.
Yes, yes.
Great. So now we're kind of hitting mid-year, in 2021. What what do you foresee, in terms of any trends or things that could be skewing kind of the market in a certain direction? What's your take on that? Do you see anything this year or even into next year?
Well, I'm not a market specialist. However, the one trend I do see is continuation of rental growth. The rent growth, and more so not only like states where New York or California, but also in this Midwest and Southeast where our properties at.
Mhm.
And there has been throughout pandemic consistent rent growth, and we tried because we wanted to see how far we could push. Um, it's they're taking it, right? Not only they get this free checks from government, so they have some money, but also it's the trend. Like everyone else is raising the rent. So if we raise it, the people see it as just natural thing to happen, right? So I see the overall trend of rent growth. I think it's going to continue throughout 2021.
That's very good. Yeah. What do you, I know that you and your group are very focused in multifamily apartment real estate investing. Have you looked at, or would you guys ever consider expanding your portfolio to other asset classes like self-storage, mobile home?
I hear good things about self-storage, mobile home, and senior living,
Mm.
especially nowadays. I possibly, again, because I'm one of the least experienced ones, so I will just continue to focus on multifamily myself, probably for the next couple of years. But eventually, why not if it's a good investment vehicle too? But I know some of my mentors or partners, they are into also mobile home parks and some Airbnbs. But the important thing is that they're already established with multifamily.
Mm.
So they have that strong cash flow and strong portfolio. That's why they were able to look at other types of vehicles. So even if they don't, get into the game that fast, they're still, doing it well from other portfolios of multifamily, right? I guess I need that background first established because I see it. Some people say, "Oh, you got to diversify." Okay, you got to put you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. But I told them, but you got to have some eggs first, right?
That's true.
So
Gotta have something to start with.
right, you got to have something solid. So I want to establish multifamily first, and then maybe diversify thereafter.
You know, yeah, I think that's a great strategy. Just thought I'd ask, just because some people have already started thinking about it, or just because they started getting into, apartment investing, that, oh, maybe we could start diversifying now. So I'm just curious to know what you and your team have actually thought about. So
Yeah, again, it's a couple of my colleagues and mentors are doing it, which I think that's a great investment vehicle too. It's just me personally not ready yet.
yeah, well, that's good. Yeah, you got a few years, and once you establish yourself here, you got a nice baseline to work from.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, what habits? I mean, considering that you're a high achiever, of course, you've got into entrepreneurial business, you've got something here in multifamily. What work habits do you swear by that have actually influenced you, to develop such a great career so far here in real estate?
Work habits. Okay, so I already told you about the planning side, right? And I'm really heavily relying on my planning and to-do lists and goal setting skill set. So, because I already told you, on top of that, uh, I leverage some other like management programs like Asana, CRM, Active Campaign, my to-do list on my iPhone, and things like that. But one other thing that I want to talk about is it's not a skill set actually, but maybe like could be a habit is speedy execution.
Mm.
I think this is one of the critical thing, not only real estate, but also in any business. As let's say if you're an owner of your business, you gotta have to make a speedy execution and the action has to be taken. But I'm not talking about making arbitrary decision, right? Based on your experience level, if you're experienced enough, you can make a speedy execution, yet it's still great decision based on given circumstances, right? And then just keep taking actions just relentlessly. And if something goes well, that's when you push harder so that you can ride on that momentum. That's how I see it. And once you ride on that momentum, you will experience something that I'm experiencing now, where you are leading it, but at the same time, you feel like something is pushing you too. So it's like a wind.
That's a very, very good analogy. Actually, I've heard something similar before, but if I could just caveat what you just said there, it's basically just taking daily action steps. Eventually, the more that you do, you tend to pick up momentum, and once you do, it's just kind of the force of that. Things start to open up for you, these opportunities, and then once you catch that sale, like you did here, I guess just more opportunities start to come your way, and then you eventually just kind of ride that wave. Things not necessarily come easier, but more opportunities seem to be presenting themselves to you.
Yes, you put in a better way.
That was perfect. I like that. Yeah. So it's daily action and just taking the initiative, and then eventually writing that momentum. That's
Right,
very
right.
good. Very good.
And one more thing, just to complement that,
Yeah.
if you fail on something, then
Hmm.
you quickly pack up and move on to the next task. Don't dwell on your failure. That's what I did too. Like, okay, you got to learn, obviously, but you just don't keep thinking about it because it will hinder your taking the actions.
That's true. Yeah, and that's where a lot of people stumble. I've catch myself too, and I think you've been smart enough to kind of not dwell on it too much, because if you do, that actually hinders your progress, and then that's where a lot of people stop eventually and lose momentum.
Mhm. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, what is one common myth about being in real estate, as an investor that you would like to debunk?
Okay. One common myth, I hear this all the time and I get asked all the time. The common myth, I think, is people say that you need to start small
Mhm.
uh, before going into multifamily. And I think this is a myth because okay, many times, I think most of the times, okay, it will probably help because I didn't start that way. I can't talk about that, but my mentors still say, you got to start small and from that point on gradually scale up, which is, I guess that's how people naturally think. But I didn't start that way, so I really can't go along with that common myth because that's why I call it common myth. To me, small uh, residential investment like flipping or duplex house hacking or burst strategies, these are just different animals. Like this is just two different games from commercial side of multifamily, which is over 5 units. And I consider them to be, let's say, bear hunting versus fox hunting, right? You want to hunt bear, but you want to do fox hunting first so that you could learn how to hunt bear. But it doesn't really make sense because you're learning how to hunt fox. And when you need to learn how to hunt bear, I mean, in the end, what you can get is you can get the peace of mind that you tried hunting at least, right? And then you might have to start all over to learn how to hunt bear. So to me, it's just two different games. And I believe in that you could directly go into bear hunting and learn how to hunt bear as long as you're equipped with right education and meeting the right people and finding the good mentor and just being patient, be patient and take actions
Yeah.
because it's quicker to find and flip a house than to find 20, 30, 40 unit apartments and form a team and closing it. Just like it took 10 months for me to do my first deal. But if I was aiming to do a single house flipping somewhere in Midwest, I would have probably just been able to do it in a month, right?
Mhm. Yeah, perfect. I think that's a great way to put it. It just depends on what your end goal is. And I think you knew coming in that it was going to take time. And like anything, when you invest in multifamily, the higher you go in units, the longer it's going to take to close. It's just the nature of real estate. But knowing that you've already had that mindset, uh,
Mhm.
coming in saying, I'm gonna invest and purchase commercial real estate. Some people are thinking, oh, well, gosh, maybe I need to start with a single family first, then jump into that duplex and then a fourplex. That's kind of the ideal way. That's what everybody says, but you can get straight to it, just like what you did with your first unit of 44 units, and then getting larger after that. You just have to have that mindset that it's going to take longer, of course.
Right. And be patient. But don't get me wrong, I didn't know it's going to take 10 months. Okay. If somebody told me it will take 10 months to get your first deal, it would have been a lot easier. But I didn't know. No one's telling me throughout the 10 months. I felt like, I was just walking this endless tunnel without a light because people are closing deals left and right. And I'm like, okay, something's going to happen to me. So you just keep pushing and pushing yourself. So it's not like, I was really patient. I knew this was going to happen, and I was really having the peace of mind or anything. It was like that. I was just walking endless tunnel, right?
Yeah. One other thing too I noticed about you is you're just self-driven to begin with. I think you're just self-driven to just take action. And by having those blinders on, as long as you can motivate yourself in some way, some capacity on a daily basis, you won't have a tendency to stop, because most people need that motivation from other people in order to motivate themselves. But having a strong self motivation internally is actually what you're going to probably need to catapult you to that next level in a lot of sense.
I agree. I agree.
So that's good. We've covered a lot of things, and you just have this aura about you. Just in terms of the things that you've accomplished. You've definitely motivated me for my team too to really try to maybe land a couple more deals here before the end of the year. But Yusuf, where can our listeners learn more about you, connect with you, maybe follow you and your progression?
I am very approachable. I'm open here. Take me. Okay. So I'm everywhere on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Insta, recently started TikTok. And
Wow.
my daughter was like, you have a TikTok account? Right.
That's
And
really good.
right. So just punch in Yosef, your Brosef. That's my nickname, Brosef. So YOSEF, YOUR BROSEF. You will easily find me. You can email me, or I'm just open. And I love to network, and I love to listen to your real estate journey and get to know who you are. So please connect to me.
That's awesome. Not only are you a kind and very generous person, I really admire and I like actually following you on social media as well. You come up with some good content. You're definitely a networker. You get invited to a lot of podcasts and events. So I just like to see your evolution, and it really inspires me, to say the least.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And now we have our very last question, kind of our question here for the podcast show. I always like to take whatever we learn from a guest, what actionable steps can they take, right after either listening to this, or what they can start doing to implement immediately. So with that said, what actionable steps do you think that you've learned that you can maybe pass along to our guests to have them start thinking about, okay, what can I do now to get started?
Okay. I actually recently wrote a little short article about how to, take a proper action type thing, right? So I think the first thing that you should do is asking how, right? A lot of times people say, I can't do this, I can't do that because this and that. But everything's the action. Actually, best advice is take actions. But to take that actions, you got to start asking yourself how I can do certain things. And by asking how, you come up with the next set of questions. Okay, how can I do this? Then it will push you. Okay, what knowledge should I learn, or who should I know? That's networking side, and what actions I can take. So by asking how, these following questions will come up, and then you should think about answering these three following questions. What education, in terms of multifamily, what education you should take to become a successful multifamily investors? There are a lot of contents out there. So at least you got to be able to, you got to learn all these lingos and terms and concepts to understand it. So you should be able to speak that language. And then who do you need to know? You got to find a mentor. You got to surround yourself with, like-minded people, highly motivated performers, so that you can also be motivated and inspired by them, and also learn by watching what they do and how they do it. And being in a team is also essential to, tackle down bigger properties. Right. Lastly, by learning and by networking with people, you're going to get a good idea of what actions you should take, right? And then lastly, just do it. Like that's the most important part. You got to do it. don't fall into the gap of analysis paralysis. You can't just come up with a perfect plan. You're too late. By the time you have perfect plan, it's no longer perfect plan because strategies change, people change the way they work, and it's just too late for you, right? So have a good enough plan, and then take the actions. And then as you go, pivot, right? Pivot the way you execute your business plans. I think that's the way to go.
That was a very good and succinct breakdown. I really appreciate that. I actually took a couple notes here myself.
I don't know how he came out. I was just going by whatever flow, but I should have written it down. Oh, okay, it's recorded, so I'm gonna listen to it again.
Oh, it was perfect. I took notes here, and I would just like to say to our audience members, please review this again if you'd like. But I think that right there, what you just said, those 6 or 7 key bullet point items is actually really key. And folks, I would definitely take a look at it, listen to this, and follow Yusuf. If you find that his background or his story intrigues you, because look, he's already setting an example, and he's already got a success track record already. So I think that these are just tidbits of information that will definitely at least provide you or lead you in the right way and give you guidance that you need to continue in your commercial real estate career. So Yusuf, I want to just kind of thank you so much for being on the show. I learned so much about you again, and I'm sure our audience members will really, enjoy this podcast as well.
Thank you very much, Ernest, having me here. I really had a good time, and I enjoyed the conversation we had today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Until the next time, we will talk to you again. Bye.
Bye.
Let's go ahead and